My name is Lauren Parker. I am 28. And a few nights ago, my own mother put her hands on my desk and literally shoved it away from the wall so my brother could move his camera in. She did not yell. She did not ask. She just said it like a decision that had already been signed and stamped. We are giving this room to him for his studio. You can work in the basement. My brother was leaning in the doorway, arms folded, watching my monitors go dark like it was a show. He smirked and added, "You will be fine down there, right? Less distraction." He said it like a joke, but he meant every word. That room was my office, the space I had built piece by piece so I could work remote as a designer and actually pay the bills that kept this house running. I just stared at him, then at her, and all I managed to say was, "Okay." No yelling, no scene. I packed my laptop, my hard drive, and a few things I could carry in one trip. I walked past them, straight down the stairs, like I was going to the basement just like they wanted. They had no idea that when I said okay, what I really meant was, I am done. That night, I moved out silently. I changed more than just where my desk was. And the very next morning, the calls started. Then the texts. "We cannot afford this without you. Please pick up." They called me non-stop, like suddenly I was the only person in the world who knew how to keep their lives from falling apart. If you have ever wondered what happens when the person your family takes for granted finally walks away, stay with me, because the way they begged me to come back might make you rethink how much you let people use you. Growing up, I always knew my family was a little lopsided, but I did not realize how bad it was until money got involved. I was the kid who stayed up late finishing projects, who color-coded notes, who actually cared about grades. Ethan, my younger brother, was the one everyone said was sensitive and creative, which apparently meant the rules just bent around him. When I got into a good design program on a scholarship, my mom, Lynn, gave me a quick hug in the kitchen and said, "That is great, honey. You always were responsible." When Ethan passed an online class he barely did the assignments for, she ordered a custom cake from the bakery down the street and posted about it on Facebook like he had cured a disease. I learned early not to expect confetti when I did something right. After college, when rent in Manhattan was basically $3,000 a month for a closet with a sink, moving back home to our place in Brooklyn felt like the only financially sane choice. I told myself it would be temporary, just until I built up some savings from my UX job and freelance work. What actually happened was I slid into this role as the household's unofficial bank, tech support, and problem solver, and nobody even noticed the shift but me. It started small. Mom's paycheck was short 1 month, and the electric bill was higher than usual, so I covered it. Then the Wi-Fi got upgraded so Ethan could stream better without lag, and somehow the new plan ended up on my card. Then the Netflix, the Spotify, the shared phone plan, the extra groceries for all the takeout nights we justified as family time. I told myself, it is fine. I make more. This is what you do when you love people. But every time my card auto-renewed some subscription, none of them would survive a week without. I felt that tiny twist in my chest. When Ethan decided he was going to be a content creator, Mom said it like she was announcing a career path. Not a whim. "He needs a little push," she said. "He has potential. He just needs support." Support meant I paid $600 for a TikTok creator course he never finished. Support meant I ordered him ring lights and phone tripods from Amazon for the channel. Support meant I woke up at 2 in the morning to fix the internet when it cut out during his late-night gaming streams because he was testing setups. Meanwhile, my own work, the work that actually brought money in, happened quietly in the background. I turned that little room on the top floor into a real office because nobody else cared about it. I spent my own savings on a proper desk, an ergonomic chair, a second monitor, a drawing tablet, and warm lighting so I didn't look half dead on client calls. I pinned wireframes to the walls, scribbled notes on sticky pads, and built an actual career in that space. That office was the difference between me barely scraping by and me landing bigger contracts, raises, better clients. But whenever Mom talked about it, she said, "Lauren is lucky she can work from home." Lucky. As if it all just fell into my lap and I didn't drag myself to get there. At the same time, she talked about Ethan like he was one viral video away from changing all our lives. She never once asked how many hours I spent iterating on an interface or fixing bugs someone else ignored. She only noticed when a bill was due, and somehow, miraculously, it got paid. I had this running tally in my notes app, just for myself. Rent I handed her each month. Utilities I covered when she was short. Subscriptions I forgot I signed up for because everybody used them. Groceries, takeout. Ubers for her when she didn't feel like taking the subway. Ubers for Ethan when he had some half-baked job interview he never went to. Every time I updated that list, the number at the bottom got uglier. My mom kept calling it family helping family. I started calling it me quietly bleeding money so they could pretend everything was fine. The worst part was that they truly believed they were the ones struggling the most. Ethan would sigh about how hard it was to make it as a creator. While sitting in the room I paid to heat and scrolling through sneakers he wanted. Mom would complain about prices going up, and I would bite my tongue instead of pointing out that my name was on half the accounts that kept her life comfortable. I knew, logically, that I had allowed this to build. I said yes too many times. I stepped in before they ever had to feel the consequences of their own choices. I smoothed every sharp edge, and because I kept doing it, they assumed I always would. That was the dynamic. That was the script. Lauren will handle it. Lauren will pay it. Lauren will fix it. I just never expected they would shove me out of the very room that made all of that possible. The night my mom pushed me out of my own office, something in me finally stopped making excuses for them and started asking the one question I had avoided for years. What would actually happen if I didn't handle it this time? That question would not leave me alone. It followed me into the shower, into my dreams, into the quiet moments between meetings when my camera was off and my smile dropped. What would actually happen if I didn't fix it this time? That night after my mom told me to take the basement, I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, my laptop open but my Figma files untouched. Instead, I opened Zillow. I typed in Queens, Studio, Max Price, and hit search like I was just window shopping. I told myself I was only curious. The rent numbers still made my stomach clench, but for the first time, they did not feel completely impossible. I had savings. Not a fortune, but enough. I scrolled past dark, depressing boxes and sketchy listings until one caught my eye. A small studio in a quiet part of Queens, with a big window facing the street and just enough wall space for a desk and shelves. The pictures showed sunlight on hardwood floors and a tiny kitchen with white cabinets. It was nothing fancy, but as I swiped through the photos, I could already see where my monitor would go, where I would tape up my wireframes, where I would put a plant and pretend I was the kind of person who remembered to water it. I checked the price 3 times, $2,200 a month. High, but not unthinkable when I added up what I made and what I would stop bleeding out on everyone else. I stared at the total in my notes app, the one tracking what I had poured into this house, and realized that in 1 year, I had already paid the equivalent of several months of that studio, but had nothing to show for it that actually belonged to me. The next morning, I told Mom I had an early meeting at a client office in Queens. Technically, it was not a lie. Someone there was about to decide my future. I took the train, clutching a folder with my pay stubs and ID, my heart pounding like I was going to an interview. When the landlord, An older woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense voice opened the door. The place was even smaller than it looked online, but it was clean. It was quiet. And most importantly, it was mine if I wanted it. We sat at the tiny counter that passed for a dining table while she went over the lease. "You work from home?" she asked. I nodded. "UX designer. I just need good internet and a place to put a desk." She nodded like that made sense. "We do not tolerate parties," she said. "No loud music, no drama." I almost laughed. That is exactly what I am trying to get away from. When she slid the lease over, my hand shook for a second. My brain threw every fear at me at once. What if your work dries up? What if this is irresponsible? What if your family hates you? Then another thought cut through all of that. They already treat you like you owe them your whole life, and they still did not hesitate to push you out. I signed. I transferred the first month and the deposit, $6,600 disappearing from my account in one click. It hurt, but it also felt clean. This was not like throwing money into a bottomless pit of bills and excuses. This was building something for me. On the train ride back to Brooklyn, I kept touching the new key in my pocket, the little square of metal that meant I finally had a way out. When I walked in the door, Ethan was on the couch, shouting into his headset at some game, plates from last night's takeout still on the coffee table. Mom was at the kitchen counter scrolling on her phone, complaining under her breath about the price of groceries. Nobody asked how my client meeting went. Nobody noticed the shift. That was fine. It actually made what I did next easier. I started small. That night, when they asked what we should order for dinner, I said I already ate. The next day, when Mom texted me to add some things to the grocery delivery, I replied, "I cannot cover extra this week. My budget is tight." It was the first time I had said no in years. There was a pause, then just a thumbs-up emoji. The Wi-Fi glitched during one of Ethan's streams and he pounded up the stairs to my office, or what was still technically my office for a few more days. "Hey, Lauren, can you reset the router? It is doing that thing again." I looked at my screen, at the prototype I was testing, at the time. "I have a deadline," I said without looking away. "You can figure it out." He stood there for a second like he had never heard those words from me before. Eventually, he muttered something and stomped back down. The world did not end. A couple of nights later, when Mom mentioned needing an Uber for an early shift because she did not want to deal with the subway, I told her I could not put it on my account this time. Maybe ask Ethan or take the train. She gave me a look like I had just spoken another language. "Are you okay?" she asked. "You always help." I forced a smile. "I am just trying to be smarter with my money." It sounded so casual out loud, but inside it felt like ripping up an old script. Every no I said made it a little easier to say the next one. Behind the scenes, I started moving pieces of my life out of that house. The first thing that left was my external hard drive with all my client files. Then my sketchbooks, my favorite pens, a stack of clothes I could fit into a duffel bag. I told them I was decluttering, taking things to a storage unit, dropping stuff at a friend's place. None of it was technically a lie. The storage unit just happened to be my new studio apartment. I would finish my last meeting of the day, close my laptop, and then slide it into my backpack instead of leaving it on the desk. I took my monitor down one weekend under the excuse that it was acting weird and I wanted to get it checked. Little by little, my office became less my space and more just a room. They were too focused on Ethan's next idea for his channel and Mom's overtime schedule to notice how empty the shelves were getting. At night, after they went to bed, I would make quiet trips to Queens, carrying boxes down the stairs one load at a time so the old steps would not creak too much. Every time I unlocked that new door and stepped into the silent studio, I felt my lungs open a little wider. I would set a box down, look around at the bare walls and the echo of my footsteps, and think, this is where I stop being the person who fixes everything for everyone else first. I had not told them I was leaving yet. I wanted my exit ready before I said the words. If my mom could decide I no longer had a right to the space that funded their life in a single conversation at the dinner table, then I could decide in silence that I was done funding it. By the time they officially turned my old office into Ethan's studio, with his cheap ring light and sneaker boxes stacked in the corner, almost everything that mattered to me was already gone. What they were really pushing out was not just a desk. It was the last piece of leverage they had without even knowing it. It all really snapped a couple of weeks later. By then, most of my important stuff was already in Queens, but I was still sleeping in my old room, still pretending nothing had changed. One Saturday afternoon, I came home from grabbing a coffee and noticed something felt off when I walked past the door of what used to be my office. The room was open, light spilling in, Ethan's voice drifting out as he talked to his phone, testing angles. I stepped inside and my eyes went straight to the empty spot where my ergonomic chair used to be. The cheap folding chair from the basement was there instead, wobbling under Ethan as he adjusted his tripod. My stomach dropped. "Hey, where is my chair?" I asked, even though I already knew I was not going to like the answer. Ethan barely glanced back. "Mom sold it," he said. "Said we needed the money for my mic." The words hit harder than I expected. I turned, walked straight to the kitchen, and found Mom rinsing dishes like it was any other day. "Where is my chair?" I repeated. She did not even look up at first. "Oh, that," she said. "I listed it on Facebook Marketplace. We got $250 for it. Ethan really needed a proper microphone if he is going to take this seriously. We will get you something else for the basement. Your old one was overkill anyway." I just stared at her. That chair was not some random piece of furniture. I bought that with my bonus when my team shipped a big feature. I picked it out after weeks of back pain, sitting in it on the showroom floor while imagining myself finally working like an actual professional instead of hunched over a kitchen table. "You sold it," I said slowly, without asking me. She shrugged, finally meeting my eyes with this annoying mix of confusion and annoyance, like I was the unreasonable one. "Lauren, it is just a chair. We share things in this house. We needed money. Ethan needed equipment. You can sit on literally anything and work. You are young. You will be fine." Something inside me went very, very quiet in that moment. For years, I had tried to explain my side, to justify my spending, to gently remind them what I contributed. It never stuck. But standing there, listening to my mom talk about a chair I bought with my own paycheck like it was just community property she could cash out for Ethan's next hobby purchase, I realized talking was done. "You did not share it," I said. "You sold it. And you did not need money. You needed my money. Again." Her jaw tightened. "Do not start, Lauren," she warned. "We are all under pressure right now. You know how expensive everything is. And Ethan is trying to build something. He needs support." There it was again, that word. Support. Always flowing one way. I nodded slowly. "You are right," I said. "Everything is expensive. That is why some of us have been paying more than our share for years." Her eyes narrowed. "What is that supposed to mean?" I walked over to the counter, grabbed my phone, and opened the Notes app I had been updating for months. I scrolled, turned the screen toward her. "This is what I mean. Rent, utilities, groceries, subscriptions, Ubers, Ethan's course, his gear, half the stuff you do not even remember asking me to cover." I watched her eyes dart over the numbers, her mouth pressing into a thin line. "That cannot be right," she said weakly. "That is exaggerated. The totals are insane. Things were tight, but not that tight." I tapped the screen. Screenshots, bank statements, receipts. It is all there. You can look at every line if you want. Ethan wandered into the doorway halfway through this, a controller still in his hand. What is going on? He asked. Is this about the chair? Mom, I told you she would freak out. She is so dramatic about everything. I turned to him. You think I am being dramatic? You sold my chair so you could buy a microphone for your TikTok videos. A microphone I am sure you expect me to help pay for when something goes wrong with the order. He rolled his eyes. Relax. It is not that deep. We are family. We share. That office was just a room. You act like you built a hospital in there. A laugh escaped me, sharp and humorless. You are right, I said. It was just a room. A room where I worked the job that has been keeping this family afloat, while you play influencer and Mom pretends we can afford everything because magic money appears every month. Mom stepped in quickly, her voice rising. That is enough, Lauren. You are being disrespectful. We are all just doing our best. Ethan is trying to find his path. You have always been the responsible one. You can handle more. That is just how it is. There it was. The script. You can handle more. Translation, you will handle more because we do not want to. I felt my face go cold. No, I said. That is how it used to be. She frowned. What are you talking about? I slipped my phone into my pocket, suddenly done with this entire conversation. I am talking about the fact that I am moving out this weekend. The room went completely still. For a second, I thought maybe they had not heard me. Then Mom laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. Do not be ridiculous. You cannot just move out. Where would you even go? You know how expensive rent is. You are not thinking straight. Ethan snorted. Sure you are, he muttered. You are mad about a chair in a room, so you are going to run away and make everything worse. I looked between them, feeling strangely calm. You pushed me out of my office without a second thought, I said. You sold my furniture without asking. You took my money, my time, my energy, like it was owed. And you never once stopped to think what would happen if I stopped giving it. I have somewhere to go. I have a lease. I move my bed and the rest of my stuff out on Saturday. Mom's face went through disbelief, anger, and something that looked almost like fear. You cannot do this to us, she said quietly. We need you here. You help with everything. You know we depend on you. I nodded. I know. That is why I am doing it. Because as long as I am here, nothing changes. Ethan scoffed. You are just trying to punish us. You will come back. You always do. Maybe that had been true in the past. Not this time. I walked past them, went up to my room, and closed the door before they could say anything else. I sat on the edge of my bed, opened my phone, and pulled up the U-Haul app. My thumb hovered over the screen for half a second, then I picked the date, the time, the truck size I needed. When the confirmation came through, I felt this strange mix of terror and relief wash over me. Downstairs, I could hear Mom and Ethan arguing in low voices, the words muffled by the floorboards. For once, I did not strain to make them out. They had made their decision the second they chose his ring light over my chair, his studio over my office. I was just finally making mine. Saturday came faster than I expected. All week, Mom acted like my announcement had been a heat-of-the-moment outburst. She kept saying things like, once you cool off, we will talk about rearranging the basement, or we can get you a new chair eventually, as if buying me a used office chair would erase the fact that she sold the one I loved without asking. Ethan mostly avoided me, except for a few passive-aggressive comments about how I was really going to screw everyone over because I caught feelings about furniture. I did not explain myself again. I just worked, packed, and watched the clock. On Saturday morning, the U-Haul pulled up in front of the house right on time, the orange logo bright against our block of old brick fronts. I stood on the sidewalk for a second with the keys in my hand, feeling neighbors look out through their curtains. Mom opened the door with this brittle smile, like she still thought she could talk me out of it if she just said the right thing. "You really went and rented a truck," she said. "You are being so extreme. You have no idea how hard life is out there." I carried the first box right past her without answering. My mattress, my dresser drawers, the last of my clothes, the cheap lamp I actually liked, the things I had intentionally left behind so that they would notice when they disappeared. The whole time, the house felt oddly quiet. No music from Ethan's speakers, no TV. Just the sound of my footsteps and the scrape of furniture on wood. At some point, I went into the kitchen and took a sheet of printer paper from the drawer. Sitting at the table where we had eaten 100 takeout dinners I paid for, I wrote at the top, in big letters, "What Lauren has paid for in the last 12 months. Then I started listing. Rent. I handed my mom each month with the exact dollar amount. Electricity and gas I covered when she came up short. Wi-Fi and phone plan. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, all the little subscriptions everyone used without thinking. Groceries and delivery orders. Ethan's $600 creator course. The ring lights, the tripods, the must-have accessories. Ubers and Lyfts for Mom when she did not feel safe taking the subway at night. For Ethan when he had job interviews or networking events he never followed through on. Next to each category, I wrote the total for the year, then drew a line at the bottom and added them up. 18,600 and change. I stared at that number for a long second. That was almost an entire year of rent at my new place. I grabbed a magnet and slapped the paper onto the front of the fridge where nobody could miss it. Mom walked in just as I stepped back. "What is this?" she asked, reaching for it. I moved faster and flattened my hand over the paper. "You can read it," I said. "You just cannot take it down." Ethan wandered in behind her, barefoot, yawning like it was any other Saturday. His eyes flicked to the truck outside, and then to the paper. Mom's face went pale as she scanned the numbers. "This is exaggerated," she muttered. "You are making it sound worse than it is. Nobody asked you to do all this." I laughed under my breath. "You did not have to ask. Every time you said, 'I am a little short this month,' or 'Can you just put it on your card and I will pay you back?' that was you asking. You just never followed through on the second part." Ethan frowned when he saw his name. "You did not have to write my stuff on there," he said. "You are trying to embarrass me." I shook my head. "No, I am trying to be clear. You both keep telling yourselves we are all struggling the same way. You are not." I put the pen down and looked at both of them. "This is the last month I will ever pay for this house." Mom opened her mouth like she had something sharp to throw back, but nothing came out. Ethan just looked angry and uncomfortable, which honestly was the first time I had seen him feel anything besides entitlement in a while. I loaded the last box, then went upstairs one final time to check that I had not forgotten anything that mattered. My old room looked weirdly bare. The bed frame and a few random things would stay. I left them on purpose. I wanted there to be empty space where my life used to be. When I carried my pillow down the stairs, Mom was standing by the door, clutching the edge like she needed it to stay upright. "Lauren, please," she said quietly. "Just think about this. We need you here. We cannot afford for you to just walk away." I paused, one hand on the doorknob. "You should have thought about what you could and could not afford before you pushed me out of the room that paid for all of this," I said. "I am not doing this to hurt you. I am doing this because staying here is killing me." She shook her head, eyes glossy. "You are being dramatic. You will be back. You always come back." "Maybe," I said, "but if I do, it will not be as your paycheck." I stepped out, closed the door behind me, and climbed into the driver's seat of the U-Haul. As I pulled away from the curb, I saw them in the side mirror, standing on the stoop. Mom had her arms wrapped around herself, and Ethan kept glancing from the truck to the paper on the fridge through the kitchen window. For a second, guilt twisted in my chest like it always did. Then I pictured my new studio, the sunlight on the floor, the key in my pocket, and I kept driving. That night, I unpacked as much as my sore arms would allow, made a cheap dinner in my little kitchen, and sat on the floor among half-open boxes. My phone buzzed a few times with texts from friends, a notification from my bank about the U-Haul charge, nothing from my family. The silence was almost eerie, but it also felt like proof that I was finally on my own. I went to sleep on a mattress on the floor, exhausted but lighter than I had felt in years. The next morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating so hard it nearly slid off the nightstand. The lock screen was a wall of missed calls from Mom and Ethan, and a dozen notifications stacked on top of each other. For a second, my old instincts kicked in. Something must be wrong. Someone must be hurt. I grabbed the phone and tapped into the messages. The first text from Mom was simple. "Call me." Then, "You changed the passwords. We cannot log into anything. The internet bill is due and it is higher than I thought. Please fix this." Then, "We cannot afford this without you. Please answer your phone." Ethan's messages were more frantic and less polite. "Bro, the Wi-Fi is out. I cannot stream. Did you kill it on purpose?" Then, "Seriously, Lauren, none of this is funny. Mom is freaking out. We cannot pay all these bills without you." My phone started ringing again, Mom's name flashing on the screen. It buzzed and buzzed, the vibration filling the little studio. I sat there in the quiet, staring at her name, at Ethan's texts stacked underneath. For years, every time that phone lit up with their crises, I dropped everything to solve them. I answered from meetings, from dates, from my own sick days, because if I did not, everything would fall apart. I watched it ring until it went to voicemail. Then it rang again, and I let it. I set the phone face down on the table, took a breath, and made myself a cup of coffee while it buzzed. They pushed me out of my own office like I was optional, like my work and my boundaries did not matter. Less than 24 hours later, they were begging me back because they were finally feeling the cost of that choice. If you have ever wondered what happens when the person holding everything together finally stops picking up the phone, this was just the beginning. The calls did not slow down after that first morning. If anything, they came in waves. I let most of them go to voicemail. Old me would have picked up on the first ring, already mentally rearranging my budget. New me looked at their names on the screen, felt the spike of anxiety, and put the phone face down. I still read the texts, though. Curiosity is stubborn. Mom swung between guilt and anger. One minute it was, "I cannot believe you would do this to your own family," and the next it was, "I am sorry. I am just overwhelmed. Please call me. I do not know how we are going to make it." Ethan's messages were a mix of complaining and entitlement. "You really killed the Wi-Fi. Seriously, you ruined my stream," followed by, "At least fix the accounts so we can downgrade." I drank my coffee, logged into work, and let their emergencies stay theirs. My days in Queens were boring in the best possible way. I woke up, made breakfast in silence, worked through my UX tasks, took a walk when I needed air, cooked simple dinners, and went to bed without anyone asking for my card number at 11:30 at night. A few days in, Mom left a voicemail that sounded different. Her voice was small, not sharp. "Lauren, I know you are angry," she said. "I know you think we do not appreciate everything you did. Maybe you are right. But the gas company is threatening to shut off, and I did not realize how much was in your name. We are behind. I do not know what to do. It is getting cold. Please." I felt that familiar tug in my chest, but I did not call back right away. For the first time, I let them sit with the mess. New York answered her before I did. The temperature dropped hard. A couple nights later, my phone lit up again, and something in me said, "Pick up." I answered on the third ring. Mom's voice came through fast, almost frantic. "The heat is out," she said. "The furnace stopped working. It is freezing in here. The repair guy says it will be at least $400 just to get it running. We have nothing. We are overdrawn. We cannot afford this. Please, I do not know what to do." Old me would have already been on my banking app, typing in my password. I took a breath instead. "Did you call the gas company to set up a payment plan?" I asked. She hesitated. "No. You always handle those things." "Exactly." I stared at the wall. "Mom, I am not moving back there," I said. "I did not ask you to move back," she snapped, then her voice cracked. "I am asking you to help. We are cold." "Do you want something to happen to me?" Ethan yelled in the background. "Come on, Lauren, this is serious. It is not about Wi-Fi. Mom is freezing. Do you really not care?" There it was. The guilt hook they always used, the one that had worked every time before. I heard it, acknowledged it, and still didn't bite the same way. "I will help once," I said, "but not the way you think." Silence. "What does that mean?" Mom asked. "It means I am not just dropping my card and disappearing again," I said. "If I step in, there are conditions, real ones. You can say no, but if you say yes, you stick to them." Ethan scoffed. "Conditions? This is our heat, not a business deal." I ignored him. "One," I said, "I will pay for the furnace repair this time so you do not freeze while we figure this out. After that, I am off your bills completely. 2, we sit down in person and go through every dollar you make and spend. We make a budget that does not include me as a secret line item. 3, Ethan gets a real job, actual paychecks. At least $300 a month from that goes toward the house. And 4, you both stop treating me like 24/7 tech support and bailout. If you want advice, ask. But I am not your automatic solution anymore." Mom was quiet for a long moment. "So you are basically asking us to live without you," she finally said. "No," I said. "I am asking you to live like I am your daughter, not your bank. You can say no, but if you do, you will figure out the heat without me." More muffled arguing on their end. When she came back, she sounded tired. "Fine," she said. "Just, please get the heat fixed." I called the repair company myself, paid the deposit with my card, and set the appointment. It still stung to watch the money leave my account, but at least this time it was part of an actual boundary, not another invisible sacrifice. The next evening, I went back to the house for the first time since I left. The air was warmer, but the vibe was frostier than the November wind. Mom sat at the kitchen table with a pile of unopened bills. Ethan hovered by the counter, arms crossed, like he was ready to bolt. I opened my laptop and pulled up a blank spreadsheet. "Okay," I said. "Income first?" Mom bristled like I had just asked for her social security number, but she started talking. Hours, pay rate, average tips. I typed it all in. Then we listed out the actual bills: mortgage, utilities, phone, internet, minimum payments, subscriptions. Anytime we hit something that used to be in my name, I flagged it. Formerly me, not anymore. When it was Ethan's turn, he shrugged. "I do not really have anything," he said. "I am just trying to grow my channel." "That is not an income," I said. "That is a hobby. Right now, this is what you are spending. This is what is coming in. The math does not care about your channel. If out is bigger than in, something changes. Either you earn more, or things go." Mom looked between the columns, and I could see it landing in a way it never had when I was just covering everything. I can pick up another shift, she murmured. Maybe work weekends. She turned to Ethan. You can at least get a part-time job. You are on your phone all day anyway. Go sell something. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. I think the memory of shivering in his own house did more than any lecture I could have given. I emailed them the spreadsheet and shut my laptop. The heat is taken care of, I said. This is on you now. Mom's eyes were shiny. So you really are done, she said. You just walk away. I shook my head. I am not walking away from you, I said. I am walking away from being your safety net. I will still come for dinner. I will answer the phone when I can. But I am not going back to the way things were. On my way out, I glanced at the fridge. The paper with my list of what I had paid for was still there, edges curled, but nobody had taken it down. They had to look at it every time they grabbed milk. That felt like its own kind of progress. When I stepped outside and pulled the door closed behind me, the house behind me finally felt like what it was. Their home, their responsibility, their problem to solve. For the first time, I walked away knowing that if everything fell apart in there, it would not automatically be my job to rebuild it. 6 months later, my life and that house looked nothing like they did the night my mom pushed me out of my office. In Queens, my studio finally felt like home. I bought a cheap rug, strung up a couple of prints I designed myself, and set my desk right by the window so I could watch the street while I worked. My days were still full of deadlines and revisions, but my stress shifted from, will my family implode if I don't fix this, to, how can I make this interface cleaner? Which is the kind of stress I actually get paid for. I picked up a couple of bigger clients, started saying no to the ones that treated me like a vending machine, and instead of using every bonus to plug some new hole at home, I bought myself things that had no purpose except that they made my life nicer. A better mattress, a yoga class membership, noise-canceling headphones that were just for me. I still saw my family, but now it happened on my terms. The first time I went back for dinner after the heat situation, the house felt strange, like it was learning to stand on new legs. The thermostat was set lower than Mom used to like it. There were fewer takeout containers, and the TV was off when I walked in. Mom had dark circles under her eyes, but there was something steadier in the way she moved. Halfway through eating, she slid an envelope across the table to me without looking up. When I opened it, there was a folded check inside for $100. It is not much, she said quickly, but it is the first payment for what we owe you. My throat got tight. I did not need the money back. Not really. What I needed was exactly what that envelope represented. Acknowledgement. A few weeks later, there was another envelope, then another. Not every month, not on a schedule, but often enough that I believed she meant it. Ethan did not become a model adult overnight, but he did get a job. The mall idea lasted about 3 weeks before he realized selling shoes to picky customers was not the dream. He ended up at a warehouse across town, loading and organizing inventory. At first, he hated it. Then the first time he showed up to dinner in a work shirt with his name on it and said, kind of quietly, I got bumped up to shift lead. I saw a flicker of pride I had never seen when he was yelling into a webcam about sneakers. One night, when Mom went to grab dessert from the kitchen, he cleared his throat and said, I sent you $50 on Venmo. For the course. The TikTok one. I know it is not the full amount yet, but I am going to pay you back for all of it. I just nodded and said, thank you, and we both knew I was hearing more than the words. He had stopped scrolling for miracles and started showing up for shifts. That was the real repayment. The biggest change, though, was in the way they treated my time. The midnight calls about routers and passwords stopped. If Mom called now and I did not answer right away, she left a normal voicemail and waited. If Ethan texted with a, hey, can I ask your opinion on something? It was literally an opinion, not an emergency disguised as a question. We still argued sometimes. Old habits do not evaporate just because you put your name on a lease. But there was a line now, and everyone knew it was real. I was their daughter, their sister, not their built-in rescue plan. People like to say that revenge is about making the other person suffer, but sitting in my little studio, looking at the sunlight on my desk, I realized my version looked different. My revenge was living a life they no longer controlled, forcing them to grow up by stepping out of the role that kept them small. My mom learned how to budget without assuming her oldest would silently fill every gap. My brother learned what it feels like to earn his own money instead of spending mine. And I learned that loving your family does not mean setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. If any part of this sounds familiar, if you are the one everyone calls first and thanks last, ask yourself a question I avoided for years. What would actually happen if you stopped fixing everything? Not in a dramatic disappearing act, not to punish anyone, but as a choice to finally choose yourself. You might be surprised by who falls apart, who steps up, and who, for the first time, learns to stand without leaning on you.